Okay, so today we're going to dive into triggers in marriage. So are you even aware of when you get triggered and you go into conflict? Because like when I get triggered, it's like anger, rage, frustration, and then do you just sweep it under the rug, or what do you do with the trigger? So a big trigger for me still that I continue to work through always is around money. So
money, here we go.
I got this email from Skylar. I bad habit of like when I get up, I look at my email and Skylar's like, hey, inflation, all this stuff, I'm going to invest X amount of dollars. Can you put the money in the account? And like, it's like 6 a.m. and I'm like, already. Like, it's just
I'm going to go buy a bunch of crypto, babe. Would you mind transferring a lot of money?
Like, don't freaking tell me to transfer it. You just do it. I don't even want to know about it. Right? That's my solution right now up until this point. But like, just instantly, it sets me off. And so when that happens in your relationship, when you get triggered, do you stop and check in and recognize like what's going on inside of me? Like, or do you just let it overtake you and then eventually you get over it 5 days later, maybe you don't talk about it and then you just hold that resentment on for later, right? And so for me, like when I check into that trigger, like fear gets triggered in me. It almost feels like when I dig into it, like life or death, like fear, like we are going to die. Skylar's going to lose all of our money. Like there's stories that begin to happen in my head. And if I don't control them, they'll just run rampant and ruin my entire day. What do you know? How do I?
Yeah, I think what's interesting with triggers is people, so part of the process of being an aware human being is being clear and being aware of what triggers you and knowing why it triggered you. Right. So in that situation, you got the me asking you to transfer money so I could buy a bunch of crypto ended up triggering you. And so what happens is there's a distinction. When people get triggered, it's not they tend to believe the thought that triggered them. And so we have to go back and find out what thought was underneath that, what belief was underneath that I believed. Right? Because we could either be curious or we could believe the specific thought that's there. And so what was your specific thought? What was the belief or the thought that me just asking to transfer some money triggered?
That you're going to lose all the money.
Right. Skylar taking risks with our money
means it's gone.
Means that it's going to be gone. So that was a belief.
I'm such a positive, supporting spouse, aren't I? Like
Yeah.
I have so much belief in you. I mean, this really identifies like.
Well, I definitely have lost some money before. Shout out to all my brothers that have lost some money. It's just part of the deal. That's how we learn and grow, right? It's taking some risks and learning what works, what doesn't work.
Yeah.
And I know your tendency was to try to control. And I'm like, babe, part of my journey, I need to be able to have some flexibility to take some risks and for you to trust me.
But you didn't, okay, so I've grown in this because you didn't even know that triggered me the other day. Do you want to know what my message back to you said?
What?
You're such an amazing husband. Thank you for investing our money and taking care of our family. That's what my message back to you said. I said, done, it's in the account. But all this was going on in my head. The old me would have like...
Yeah, but being aware of those triggers, right?
Yes.
So saying, well, is that belief true?
Yes.
Right? Well, is Skylar investing the money mean we're going to lose everything?
Yes.
Probably not. And so, but we tend to believe the thoughts, right? We tend to believe the thoughts that are in our head. And that's I mean, are we our thoughts, right? So no,
is
we're
it
not.
True?
We're not our thoughts.
Yeah.
And so our thoughts pop in, and we have to discuss, be curious about them. What thought triggered me? Because it's always a thought that triggers you. Mm-hmm. So if you come to your relationship and your partner emotional, you got triggered. You got to find out like what is it that triggered you? What belief? What underlying belief triggered you? Mm-hmm. And then once you identify that, then you can choose something different. But if you don't even know that's there, you're just going to go full steam in. I'm angry that you're asking about this again, or I'm angry that this happened. Or I'm angry you didn't take out the trash. I'm angry that I'm not.
Oh, if you don't talk about it, I'm going to be angry that we take about the trash, right? So that would have been, I can displace that frustration if I try and bottle that up. Then it's about the trash. Then it's about the shoes. Then it's about the way you talk to the kids. Then it's about, it can be about all these other things if I don't address the root that's in the beginning of it. But my fear, and fear is okay, right? But not when it has me and it controls me and I unknowingly act out of it. I unknowingly act out of scarcity from my childhood when my mom lost her job, right?
Yeah.
I somehow got stuck in I'm going to die. So I always have to preserve and I always have to take care of myself and I always have to do all this stuff. So there's even deeper work that you could possibly do, which I love doing when we're at our events. You do it with the men and I do it with the ladies. But where could that come from? And could we heal that underneath underneath thing, like,
yeah, it's fun. And it's amazing how many couples have issues around money, right? Where they get triggered around money. It could be the husband, right? The wives could be spending too much or going on spending sprees, or right, or the husbands could be taking too big of risks with the money. I mean, or overspending also. Like there's just these mutual triggers that tend to happen around finances, around money, and so.
I'd love to talk about the trigger of even like intimacy and having sex, right? Sometimes like a trigger for a couple could be, hey, I want to connect. I want to have sex with you. And the wife's like, that's all you ever want from me. Right? Like, does that not, isn't that's like a conversation where like, if you're not aware of what's going on, that your husband wanting to be intimate with you is actually him desiring you, seeking you, like the one woman that gets to meet that need. And if that's a negative trigger for you where you get frustrated and then pull away and feel like that's all he wants, there's a disconnect there. Like you're missing a great opportunity for you guys to be connecting. Have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a long conversation. Right?
I don't know why.
It is a fun conversation.
I want to throw it out there. This is gonna be a little promo for the next video.
We could talk for a week straight on all these different topics. But yeah, of course. No, that's I mean, that's one.
What do I do that triggers you?
What do you do that triggers me?
Prolonged.
I mean, it could be a probe. It could be like, why didn't you do details? So if I miss a detail and then you get on me about it. So if I'm running an event or if I'm doing something and you say, hey, why didn't you notice this? Or why didn't you catch this? Or what's going on here? Or hey, you this song, like you weren't playing the right song. Or like if you catch something, it bothers me. It bothers me. I get triggered, and I believe underneath that is just I'm trying to be detailed, and it just triggers an insecurity that maybe I'm not detailed enough. And so when you go do that, it most likely triggers that, because I've done some journaling and some deep diving into that.
And how often it's like I feel like most women tend to be more detailed than men. I don't know if it's God, like, and you guys are like the visionaries. And that used to be a really dividing thing for us, that like I expected you to get all the details, and I had to drop it. Because, like, how can you be this big visionary, this big mover, this big shaker, and do all the details?
Yeah, I can do a lot of details, but not catch all of them. And you're amazing at catching the ones I missed. Yeah, and then that would trigger me, right?
All the ones, it was a big trigger for both of us.
For years, I would say a good 8 years of our marriage were just trigger, because we're both involved and running and doing things. And so it would, until finally, you made a decision to stop worrying about about catching me on the details. And the major ones, you would bring up carefully and thoughtfully. And that changed the game when you said, hey, you know what? Actually, maybe your visionary nature is actually part of your power, and because everything's a double-edged sword. Everything. So if I'm a visionary, I may miss some details, or if I'm really detailed and analytical, maybe I calculate risk way too much and I'm not able to take risks. Right. And so there's this beautiful flow between the different personality types, and so we've learned to accept the different personality types that we have. Right. You're more detailed, more just more risk adverse, and I tend to see the bigger picture, which means, because if I saw every little detail, I may not take some of the jumps that we've taken that have proven successful. Yes,
I love what you said about it being a double-edged sword, because that could be the dividing thing in our marriage. And for a while, it was the dividing thing when you wanted me to be more like you, and I wanted you to be more like me, right? And instead, it's like I have this man who's like, I stress out about the details. Like, it is stressful. I carry it. I bring it all with me, and it negatively affects me. And I have this man who doesn't care about the details. That was the wrong word. That doesn't get the majority of the details, but isn't so like about the last little details, right? And can live without stress, like in such a different way. So I want to desire to be more like that, but it was the thing that would trigger me and push me away sometimes. Like I had to consciously choose, like, how can I lean into that? How can I become more flexible and less rigid and kind of meet in the middle with everything? And you met me in the middle. Like, you hired the right people around you to handle the details. So then I didn't have to worry about, as I stepped out of our business, those details, or just knew that you had it covered and you were going to handle it, and we're not going to die. Like, it is not like, it's not as big of a deal. Like eternally, like there's so many things that we make such a big deal when it's not. It's like those triggers can literally divide you or bring you together. Like maybe the Lord put you with that person to give you that other quality that you didn't have. And you're not gleaning off of them. You're trying to harvest it and pluck it all out.
That's right? Good. Yep.
Like, it's like we're these two fields growing together and we can come together so beautifully, or we can oppose each other so strongly. Like, so, because I now see it as like all the things that I'm not good at that you are great at. I believe those are my qualities too, because I have access to them. Like when we work together and we do things together with such a balanced approach, like God almost probably purposely like put us together because we are opposite in so many ways. And now I have access to all these traits as a whole person.
Yeah, and that's what makes marriages powerful. It's when so beautiful. It's when each individual couple sees the other person, wants them to be more like them, and then therefore they're two different people, as opposed to having different personality traits, different skill sets, and then making one whole. Like that's where the power is. That is where it's at. And so we have to learn to accept. I remember we had that conversation. We said, hey, we need to just accept each other for who we are, and then learn to love that, and then look past everything else, because my brain's trained to see something, your brain's trained to see something, so you just have to look past it to be able to embrace and love that other person. Yeah. Good stuff.
Yeah. We can't wait to keep diving into these topics. If you got any great value out of it, let us know below. If you have a topic you want us to cover in marriage, send it below also. And if you haven't liked and subscribed to the channel and the video, please do that. We'd love it. So can't wait to be back with you soon.